The chapter I chose to read was The Community of Inquiry Theoretical Framework. In this chapter, they talked about how new technologies that we have today provide an opportunity for us to have more distance educational experiences, and there's increased access to educational experiences in general, and that the collaboration that people have with each other goes beyond just exchanging information and moderated critical discourse, but that they have found new ways of learning. And the theoretical framework that they have in this theory has certain assumptions. They believe that higher order learning is best embedded in a community of inquiry composed of teachers and students. And this is because they think it's important for people to learn together and be able to discuss things with each other as they reflect on what they're learning. And that as they do so, it helps them construct meaning from what they're learning and experiencing. And collaborative discourse is favored over student independence. So in the past, people used to favor students doing their own work, but now people are valuing collaboration a lot more. And so this framework includes 3 essential elements called social presence, cognitive presence, and teacher presence. And these elements work together to create a deep, meaningful learning experience. And it's important that they are in balance with each other, because if one or two outweigh the others, then it's not fulfilling its desired results. So the first one is social presence, and this essentially says that students need to see each other as real people, and they need to get to know each other and their personalities and senses of humor, so they can trust each other and be able to have open communication with each other and have the strong relationships that are desired in these communities. And students need to feel a sense of belonging, which they can feel as they recognize that people know and recognize and understand them. And these things help to create a trusting environment. And there's 3 categories of social presence. Those are affective communication, open communication, and group cohesion. So affective communication refers to people using emoticons and capitalization or punctuation and using their sense of humor to help people get to know them. And open communication encourages critical reflection and discourse through recognizing, complimenting, and responding to the questions of others. And then there's group cohesion, which means that people will identify with the group and see themselves as a part of the community of inquiry. And it's important that these communities aren't just based on being friends with each other. It is important that they have relationships with each other, but they shouldn't just be about socializing, because as that happens, the cognitive gains that students experience are decreased. And so researchers have found that there is a relationship between social presence and learning outcomes, satisfaction with the learning experience, and retention of the things they've learned. The second is cognitive presence. This is based on critical thinking literature and Dewey's reflective thinking model. And critical thinking authenticates existing knowledge and generates new knowledge. They had a diagram of the practical inquiry model, which has 4 events in it. There are 4 phases. There's the triggering event, exploration, integration, and resolution. So the triggering event is where the student first recognizes or conceptualizes the problem or issue that they're facing. In the exploration phase, that's where they gain a greater understanding of the problem and start searching for information they need and different explanations to the problem. In the integration phase, they are more focused on constructing a meaning, and they engage in critical discourse that shapes their understanding. And in the resolution phase, they settle on a solution and vicariously or in reality test their solution through implementation. Teaching presence is the third component, and it's a key element in integrating the social and cognitive presence in the inquiry process. The teacher should be experienced enough to know how these things fit together, and they should some of the things that the teacher does are organize and design the content presentation, facilitate discourse, and give direct instruction. And students need to have an influence on what is studied and how it is approached. The teacher needs to be concerned with cognitive development. And the chapter talked about having activities that help students get through all parts of the critical thinking process, because some activities don't get them to the second phases of integration and resolution. They just focus on the first two. And so teachers need to design activities that help students get to the last two. And if the focus is on that, then students will get through all four instead of just getting through the first two. And it's important for perceived learning and satisfaction, acquisition of knowledge, ensuring participation, and quality responses. So clearly the teacher has a very important role in these communities. And then lastly, they talked about applications of this theoretical framework, and they say it's more than just improving computer packages that people use or communicating with people using email, and it's more than just putting lectures online, but that educators need to have a deep understanding of what teaching and learning are and what makes them deep and meaningful. And not only that, they need to understand the new technologies that are being developed and how to use those to enhance the learning that students experience. There's a quote in the chapter that I really liked. It said, "Doing anything with these new media that does not expand our horizons is pedagogically pointless." And so I think it's important to realize that even though some of these technologies are really exciting, they have to be helping us accomplish the goals that we have for learning and teaching. This is something that can be used really well in blended learning. And one thing that the chapter talked about was how students prefer to have the face-to-face environment to initiate a discussion, and then they like to expand the discussion online. And so I think that's a great way of bringing together the social presence where people get to know each other, and then the online part enhances their cognitive presence and their critical thinking even more. Another thing the chapter talked about was how students should get to moderate these discussions and choose how things are presented. And that leads me into the connections I saw between this chapter and our class. In this week and in past weeks where we've done discussions online, there are a lot of things that connect well to this chapter. With the social presence, we've gotten to know each other in class through discussions, and there's pretty open communication where people can share their thoughts about things even when they don't agree with what other people say. But it's a trusting and respectful environment where people can comfortably contribute. In the cognitive presence aspect, we have discussions in class, but then those can be expanded online. And we have discussions in Mendeley and also in digital dialogue, like what we're doing right now. And with the teaching portion, I noted that this week and in times past, we as students got to pick what chapters we wanted to read and teach, and also how to present it. And one thing I noted was that the chapter said there needs to be an experienced teacher who can recognize how to ask thought-provoking questions and get people to go through activities that will help them get through all phases of the critical thinking process. And personally, I know a little bit more than other people about this chapter because I read it, but I'm still not the most experienced teacher who can accomplish all of those different goals. And one other thing was that we have face-to-face communication and discussion with each other in class, but then we can expand those online. So that's what I have for Communities of Inquiry. Thanks for listening.